Hello, we are Hannah,
Echo,
and Crystal.
And this is a news, culture, and current events podcast from the perspective of 3 whole YouTubers. Hey, Crystal.
Woo-hoo.
Hey, Hannah.
What are you so salty about?
I'm so salty about some shit about Pride Month and YouTube.
Yeah, it's Pride Month.
And the
It's Pride
government.
Month. I'm not salty about Pride Month.
No,
I'm
no,
salty
no.
about how the handling of Pride
Yeah.
Month.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's talk
Yep.
about it. First, before we get into this, I wanted to mention something from my home state of Tennessee, because, I hate Tennessee. I don't want to, take ownership of it as my home state,
Yeah.
but I live here, so here we are. My congressman, Diane Black, is the dumbest congressman ever. She's the worst. I email her all the time. I'm sure she doesn't read them.
She's the worst.
I feel like I'm shouting into the void. But anyways, she, the other day, made the proud statement that pornography is the root cause of school shootings. And I just want to say...
Oh, was that her?
Yes.
Oh
Oh
She's
my
the
god,
worst.
that was your congresswoman?
That's my
Oh
home state of
my
Tennessee.
That was your
God.
congressperson? Oh boy.
Oh, I heard about that on Phil, and I was just like,
What? Like,
Ooh.
what?
what?
I sent her the longest email. Because you gotta get involved in local legislation,
do.
friends. This is a reminder. Don't vote parties.
Yeah.
Vote non-dumbass, okay?
Yeah.
That is the thing
Yeah.
that you gotta do, because...
And it sucks because you have to do the research to find
Yeah.
out which
Yes.
one of them are dumbasses.
It's true.
And it sucks. You have to get to know them
Yes.
as people, and it sucks.
It's not a good time.
Basically.
But if you don't, then this will happen in your home state, and that is more of a bummer, I promise you. Local legislation, it's important, friends. Ugh,
Yep.
man, I'm still
Yeah.
so pissed off about it. What a corrosive, toxic thing to spread as misinformation with no research behind you.
No.
Like, you're just talking. You can't just talk like that. That's so dangerous to do. Okay, let's talk about Pride Month.
Well, it's Pride Month, in case you missed the memo.
Yeah. In a very
Yes.
hard time in our country, it's good to be happy about some things and be happy with who you are,
Yeah.
Yes.
as long as you're not an asshole.
Don't be a dick.
So, should we talk about, YouTube specifically and Pride Month? Because
For
this
sure.
is a thing that has happened.
Let's start
YouTube,
there, and then we'll branch off.
Yeah. YouTube has a very, prominent or, prevalent Pride community or,
Yeah.
just LGBT community on YouTube. It's a big thing. But, because of, the algorithm and all these different things that they're trying to implement, where they're trying to teach a system, essentially, like AI, to learn what is and is not advertiser-friendly, the LGBT community is kind of being forced to, hold the load of that work in helping the algorithm figure out what is okay and what is not. And that sucks, because so much LGBT content is getting demonetized on
Yes.
YouTube. And YouTube as a company wants to celebrate pride and differences and diversity. They want to align themselves in that way, at least I feel like they do, but they're also just still kind of... They're not doing things right.
No.
No.
They keep messing up.
Between basically what we're talking about is, we'll pinpoint it to a particular person. I don't know the person's name, but somebody uploaded 2 videos. It's the same exact video
Yeah,
about being
I
a
saw
transgender
that.
person and their
Oh
life
yeah,
story.
this is Chase Ross.
Yeah, okay, that's the name of the person. And one just had, my life story or my something. And it was no buzzwords, no LGBTQ words. And then in the other one, they changed the title to say, parentheses, transgender or something like that. And within minutes, it got demonetized. And he was just like, I don't know their thing, but what the hell?
You can't claim that, the algorithm isn't discriminating against transgender people if it instantly demonetizes anything with the word transgender in it.
And it's not
And
just
then-
one person. This has been shown,
Yeah.
countless times.
Yeah.
Yes. That's just one example of many, many, many. And it sucks because what I was talking to David about this the other day is that so many times something happens with the algorithm and we point it out and they're just like, that is just our thing learning. And I honestly don't think they even know what the fuck their algorithm does. No,
Yeah.
genuinely, I don't think they know. This is kind of like off topic but on topic in terms of YouTube just not knowing how to manage itself. Did you guys see or hear about Swoop? I think Mikey from Glam and Gore, her friend, was a makeup artist, and her channel, she had 600,000 subscribers, just got throttled one day. And just for some reason, every single upload, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm not getting as many views. It was like 90% less average viewership. And she went to YouTube, tried to contact partner managers, everybody. She like went to offices, and everybody was just like, sucks for you, homie. Yeah. And like, nobody could help her until a few weeks ago. She found an actual employee at Google who worked on the YouTube algorithm, and she was like, help me, and she shook him, but she didn't shake him, that's just how it looks in my head. And so he opened up the laptop and started tickety-tack, and then she didn't tell any details. She's just like, I'm having a problem and nobody will fucking help me. So he's like, okay, I'll look at your shit. So he look, and he's like, this particular day is weird. He zooms in, and she's like, I knew it, because she didn't tell him that. And then he goes, yeah, you got screwed. And she was like, well, no. What happened? He was like, I can't really explain it in technical terms in a way that's going to make sense, but you basically got hit with the algorithmic equivalent of lightning, getting struck by lightning. And your channel's dead.
Oh, yeah, that's not a good answer.
That was over a year of talking to YouTube partner managers, YouTube organizers, people at YouTube Spaces. She finally gets her hand on a Google employee, not even a YouTube employee, and they're finally able to tell her that. So that tells me, especially in light with, like, this whole, the LGBTQ problem that we see, I don't think these motherfuckers at Team YouTube know what the fuck the algorithm does.
I feel like, okay, this is the thing that I constantly think about. Do you remember the AI, I forget what company it was, but they hooked it up to a Twitter account, and they ended up with, like, this alt-right Nazi AI that was, like, racist and shouting all kinds of horrible things, and they immediately, like, it took, like, 24 hours for a bunch of fucking trolls to destroy this AI and make it this horrible, hateful thing. And I feel like that's kind of what the YouTube AI is, but not not that severe. It's the tiny reflection of human culture, because that's all it has to go on. It's using, like, the way that humans approach these videos, or the way that our culture approaches these videos, to try and figure out what is and is not okay and what is and is not right. So it's learning from people like them who go and flag hundreds of trans videos because they say the word trans. Shit. And then it's like, sense. Clearly the humans don't like this, and thinks that there's something wrong with it. Even though there's nothing inherently wrong with being trans, or nothing inherently, like, not advertiser-friendly about being trans.
Not friendly, family-friendly. That makes sense.
Yeah. I feel like the AI is learning from really shitty people.
Yeah, so what everybody's really mad about now is because YouTube likes to act like they're very pro-LGBTQ+. It's mostly, I think, because of their demographic. They have a lot of kids, and it is not demonstrated in their actions, and this is what people get really mad at. So they do all these, like, little pandering things. They do YouTube Rewind, and they just released their Pride Month video that was like a minute and a half of
which
just
they've been doing for, like, the last couple years.
Yeah.
It's
just it feels like pandering, and that's the only way I can describe it. They don't back it up with any actions, which is what's so frustrating. So that video, their Pride video today, is doing terribly. Have you guys looked at it?
No, last year, there was, I don't know if this is like a conspiracy thing, but from what I've seen online with last year, they started, once again, conspiracy theory, I need to drill that into people. I don't know if this is verified or not, but apparently YouTube was deleting the dislikes because the dislikes got so bad, and it was on track to be the most disliked video on the website. The Pride video they released last year. And this was, like, they reached out to a bunch of LGBT creators and actually had them, like, send video clips and talk about their experience, and it was, like, they actually put in more effort, I feel like, than they did this year, whereas this year it feels more like a slideshow of, like, inspirational quotes and moments.
It's a slideshow.
Last year, it felt like they tried a little bit more to be more involved, and this year it feels like they did it because they had to. If that makes any sense. Yeah. It kind of sucks, because I feel like there's so many companies that are now like, oh, I guess it's not a bad thing if we can finally say that we support the LGBT community. Like, we're not going to get horrible, negative, like, brand connections if we say that we support the LGBT community, and that seems like a good thing to do. So they did that, but now I feel like culture's kind of regressed with this current presidency, and now more people are kind of, like, anti-LGBT. So now it's kind of gone into this negative where it's like, oh shit, we just said we support this group, and now culture's, like, now it's bad PR. What are we gonna do? And so they feel like they have to now, but they don't actually want to, just because of the negative PR.
That's interesting.
That could just be me. That's just, I don't know. That's what goes through my brain when I think of
Possibility.
corporations.
It's a possibility. There are, on that note, I wanted to talk about what you guys think about corporations doing Pride campaigns, because it has been an ongoing thing, especially in last year's. This year, Levi's did one, H&M did one, General Mills does a lot of stuff like that, Target always does stuff, and, of course, the YouTube one.
Yeah.
But
I
I wanted to know what you guys think about, like, the whole idea of a corporate campaign.
It depends on what they're doing with it. I mean, if they want to say, like, hey, you're great and we love you, that's dope. Do that, please. Now, if you're going to start selling shirts marked up 20% and then keeping all of the revenue for your pockets...
That's what I was getting at.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Now, if you're doing a campaign and you're donating that revenue to something like the Trevor Project or like a charity, then fuck yeah, do that. It's just kind of like, how are you approaching it is really... Like, are you trying to make money off of it or
also, a tweet mentioned... I was reading this tweet and it was like, don't forget to look into the history of the company. Because if this is a new thing, if, like, supporting equal rights is a new thing for them, then they're probably just doing it for the PR. But if, like, what was it? I think Target was one that is known for having, like, gender-neutral bathrooms and, like, trying to be more supportive throughout history.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Target is, like, a good example
They sell the pins that are, like, pronouns as well, like he, him, her, she. Which I think is awesome as well, because I've seen people use those and it's super fucking helpful. For sure. I put this in the same line as I do all of the breast cancer awareness stuff, where they put everything in pink. It's just like that. They're just drenching everything in rainbows, and they're like, hey, buy our shit, and we're gonna keep all the money.
Yeah.
Do you know how much of that pink shit none of that money goes to breast cancer? It's
a very low bar.
Exploiting in the worst way, I think, because it's just people who actually need help, and that's kind of how I put this in line as well. It just feels like they're exploiting people who actually could use the money.
Speaking of exploitation and stuff like that, and YouTube, that recent issue with the anti-LGBT ads on LGBTQ videos.
Oh no!
You didn't hear about
Did
that?
you hear about this?
I don't think I did.
This was huge!
Oh,
I'm
Hannah,
so surprised you didn't hear this. It was like, so anti-LGBT ads were showing up on LGBT creators' videos. So, like, the majority of, like, they were having limited ads, and the ads that they were showing were stuff like, did you know that being gay is a sin and it's awful and you shouldn't do this? And then let's watch this video from Chase Ross. And it's like horrible, horrible stuff. Like, there was Alliance Defending Freedom, I think was one of them. It was like, it's this, I want to say it's a religious group that, they helped the cake woman. They were one of the people who, like, represented her. And it's just all kinds of terrible stuff. And YouTube has, like, so many people have spoken out against this, and YouTube, they finally did remove those ads from YouTube.
It took a
minute,
though.
Announced it. It took so long. They announced this in the reply to someone's thing on Twitter. Like, this was not, like, a huge announcement kind of thing. They just, mentioned it in a reply. They were like, oh, we took care of it. And it's like, guys, get better at like, communication.
At first, they were singing the song of, like, well, we have limited blah, 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 because freedom of speech. And then people were arguing back at YouTube, like, this isn't freedom of speech. This constitutes as hate speech underneath your terms of service. So why the fuck can advertisers violate your terms of service? And you know what I mean? Like, and then I get demonetized. So, and then after that, like, a few days after that argument started bubbling up, then YouTube was like, oh, we got rid of the ad.
Oh my god.
Yep. I completely blocked political and religious ads from showing up on my channel.
That's so
which I recommend
ridiculous.
that you guys. I recommend that you guys do the same until like, just in general, it's just a good thing to do.
I agree.
Ridiculous.
It just sucks. It bothers me so much
The
that
fact
the
that
state
they could
of
even
things.
allow that to happen.
I know. That we as YouTubers have to go into the back end and turn off this particular set of ads is ridiculous in and of itself. And it's just, like that. How is that sect of information so toxic that we have to vastly just block that?
How great would it be if the advertisers had to undergo the same algorithm that we do?
Oh god!
Like how hilarious would it be if they were like if they wanted to submit like a thing for YouTube and then an algorithm was like, we're sorry, we can't show this on 80% of the videos on YouTube, and it was just like if they got like not demonetized but like ad blocked.
Oh yeah.
Just by YouTube.
YouTube would never do it because they want money. They don't give a fuck if we lose money. They want the money, so they would never do that. I mean, I would love it if they did, but they won't.
It's so frustrating.
And it's so frustrating.
Oh my god.
It's so frustrating. Speaking of the cake person.
Yes.
The cake person.
This
you
was
briefly
finally
mentioned
wrapped up. I have so much information on this because
I can't believe
love
it was
this
still
case.
going.
I think it's so interesting. It wrapped up on the 4th, I think, which is super fucking recent. And it started in 2012. So think back to 2012. Like, God.
Jesus. I hadn't even done YouTube yet.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that was a long... I remember when this case was first breaking.
Yeah. It was so long ago, I wasn't even sure about my own sexuality yet. Like, I wasn't even sure where I stood on this issue. And I still don't really know where I stand, because it's more complex than people let on that it is. So,
okay, break it down.
I'm gonna do this right now. Let's do it. So this baker, Jack Phillips, owns a cake shop called Masterpiece Cake Shop in Colorado, which is surprising. You would have thought that this was in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi.
I know, right?
It's in Colorado. Fucking weird. So in 2012, he told a same-sex couple that he would not create a cake for their wedding because of his religious opposition to same-sex marriage. And at this time in Colorado, those marriages were not recognized yet.
Yeah. He
said that this is a key part, he would sell them a birthday cake, any baked goods, other things. So that's how he ended up winning this case, spoiler alert. This is how he got away with it.
Even the winning is, there's strings attached to it. It's
there's
super
a ton of
complicated.
Strings. Yeah, so it's not an overall win for either side. It's not willy-nilly all same-sex couples get served, and it's not willy-nilly all Christian bakers get to say no to whoever they want. Which I personally think is the right answer. I should ask your guys' opinions after I set this up a little bit more.
Okay, set it up.
The couple filed a charge with the Colorado Civil Rights Commission, and they said that because it's not legal to discriminate based on sexual orientation, obviously, quote-unquote, this is what the law says, place of businesses engaged in any sales to the public or any place offering services to the public cannot discriminate based on same-sex orientation. So, they brought this to court, obviously, and it went on for fucking years, and here we are now. What do you guys think about this? Because it's so complicated.
I can totally... Crystal, I'll let you go first, because I've got things.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I love it. It's
okay.
Okay.
Okay, so... Alright, I'm gonna try to be as objective as possible in my reasoning of how I feel. Okay, so I grew up conservative, right?
Same.
Up until, unfortunately, too many years into my life, I thought that it was wrong. Okay, I hate the person I was when I thought that. I hate how long it took me to get on the same page, but people grow and change. So that being the case, I understand the thought process very thoroughly behind why they did it. Okay, and then here's why they're fucked up for it. So, I'm a Christian, and if you don't know that, I do the Jesus. I am about that life.
About that life.
I'm about that life, but I support same-sex marriage. Now, that is because if you want to look at it from a biblical point of view, not serving somebody, a service, is nowhere in the Bible.
Yes.
Like,
this is gonna
it
be
has
my argument.
absolute. It says you don't do it, right? If you want to look at it literally, which that's a whole. I can make an entire podcast about viewing the Bible literally, but we won't. So if you want to take the closed-minded literal translation of the Bible without any context or understanding of why it was written, okay, it says you don't do it. So you don't do it.
Yeah.
What the fuck does it matter
You think
if
it's a
they're
sin?
doing it?
Yeah.
Like, then don't do it, okay? But what does it matter? It affects your life literally zero. You are not condoning it. You are not doing it yourself by being like, yes, hello, here is the service that I provide publicly and legally. There's a separation of church and state on purpose. So by you claiming, oh, I can't serve these people because of my religious affiliation, well, fucking newsflash, your religious affiliation does not say you can't serve cakes to gay people.
Yep. That is.
This
not
is just
listed
a
as
little,
sin
in
the
case you
Bible.
didn't know,
Yeah,
that's
it's like
not in there.
Your random interpretation of this religion.
Yeah. Now, they're
And
not
guess what?
making you...
Jesus washed the feet of fucking prostitutes.
He
so
did.
go fuck yourself. That's how
He
I
hung out
feel.
with those people. He hung
I
out
thought
with them.
about
He
it all.
validated them. He said, you are worth something. You are okay just the way you are. Now, not to make this a religious thing, because... Oh, God. But it's... From that perspective, I mean, I disagree with these people on more than just that front, but just looking at it from the conservative perspective, you're still wrong. Even if you do think that it's a horrible, horrible thing. I don't. But that's just... Even when I still thought that was my logic. It's like, it doesn't... Why would... I was mad about this. I was still... Back in 2012, I was still on the fence. I didn't like that was a part of my religion, and I didn't understand it. But I was still kind of like, well, they shouldn't have done that, because it's not okay to do. You know, it's fucking wrong. So, but on the other side of things, I very much support religious freedom in this country. You know, somebody should be able to wear a cross, or wear a hijab, or go pray at a mosque, or you know, wear the freaking hat.
Yarmulke.
Yarmulke. I had a brain fart. You should be able to do those things and express your religion at your workplace, at your business, at school, without fear of, you know, being persecuted or anything like that. Somebody asking you to make a cake for their own, whatever the heck they're going to use it for, isn't persecuting you. I'm very sorry to inform you.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonably thought out. I agree with your points. It gets a little bit more wishy-washy when I get into it, but that is totally how I feel about it. And kind of still, even when I got into it more, I just, like, it's not... If you're going to use it based... I read the Bible so many times when I was, like, super devout. I was in it to the point where it was a cult. It wasn't Christianity anymore. Like, I was in too deep.
It can get there.
Sorry, Echo, I'll let you talk in 1 second. I'm just so excited about this case.
You're good, you're good.
Interesting. So, I can totally understand the feeling that this is such a sin that you can't do it, not based on the Bible, but based on your community that you were brought up in.
Yeah.
So the people around you are making you feel like it's a sin for you to do this, not the Bible. And that's kind of where it gets a little bit more like he feels. So it doesn't matter if his religion says it's wrong, it's if he feels like his religion says it's wrong, which is a whole nother part of it that's so interesting. Okay, Echo, I want to hear your opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna start out this way, because I was watching it was like a moral ethics thing on, like, I think it was Crash Course Philosophy, but one of the things that they pointed out is that businesses need to be able to determine whether or not they want to work with someone, because essentially, like, tattoo shops reserve the right to refuse to make or to tattoo Nazi symbols on people. Like, this is an actual thing. Tattoo shops refuse to tattoo, like, swastikas on people. And I think that makes perfect sense. Because, like, at its root, like, Nazi stuff is, like, rooted in hate and all of that garbage.
Yeah.
But, like, I feel like when it comes to, like, the cake situation, religion can't be an excuse. Like, that... I don't know. Like... ooh, my brain just, like, it just goes back to, like, all the shit that Crystal was saying. Like, it's not an excuse.
It's not an
like,
excuse.
It's not an excuse really to refuse. Because, like, the Bible's not, it shouldn't be rooted in hatred. Like,
it's not. I mean, okay. I'm not gonna go into it or whatever. If you're at all curious, listener, if you want to know how I think about things, feel free to read What Exactly Is in the Bible by Rob Bell and Love Wins by Rob Bell, and you'll get a pretty solid idea of how I think about things pertaining to Christian faith. It's with that being said, it's basically that. It's almost the idea of Christianity. I don't even like using the word to define myself because it's so riddled with a perversion of what it was supposed to be. And everything's taken out of context, and everything is just like drilled into you at such a young age that this is how it is. And like you think you're doing the right thing. You think that you're actually helping. You get like and weirdly that's brainwashed. The hardest part about it. You know what I mean? And so with that being the case, I don't hate this man who did the cake thing. I weirdly sympathize. Yeah. And it's just like, you're trying your best, and you genuinely don't know any better. And for them to then turn around and say, well, I'm getting persecuted for my religion, it's like, I understand why you're thinking that, but you're not, though. Like, it makes me sad, if anything. You know what I mean? That is the case. And God, I'm sorry. I'll get off my soapbox. I love it. It breaks my heart. It really does. It makes me so sad.
I just want to throw this out there. I grew up in a very small town too. So like, I grew up in a small, like, very religious town. So I feel like you guys grew up in the South, but I also grew up in like a very conservative freaking place. So I grew up with the same, like, everyone around you saying, like, no, being gay is wrong. I want to tell you something that I always think is really funny when I think back to this. When I was a really little kid, because I was always very logical, I couldn't figure out why people hated just anyone, so much. So in my head, I was like, okay, so everyone hates gay people. I think that's because gay people can't make babies, so they can't have kids. And so straight people are better than gay people because they can make babies. But that means that bisexual people are better than everyone because they can love anyone, no matter who they are. And if they really want to, they can make babies. So when I was a little kid, this was the logic that I had to try and apply to their hatred to have it make sense. And then I tried to tell someone, like, bisexual people are better than everyone. And they were like, no, they're sinful too. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. And it just, like, broke me as a kid. So, like, at a very young age, I realized all these people are wrong. They're just, like, hateful for no reason, but I couldn't say it. I couldn't tell anyone, like, I don't, like, that there's nothing wrong with being gay. I just couldn't tell anyone because they were all so, like, brainwashed into this idea that, like, there's something wrong with being anything other than straight. It was just always, like,
I would also like to funny. For our listeners listening, I do not want to alienate anybody who is Christian and listens to our podcast and does think that. I understand where you're coming from. If anything, I would encourage you to not maybe, like, open your mind and accept the way we think. If anything, it's not your job. American Christianity kind of convinces you that it's your job to make people behave the way God thinks they should behave. That's not your job, because that is technically judgment. And judgment in the Bible, do not judge lest you be judged, and let it be judged to you by the measure that you judge others. So I highly suggest don't do that. And if anything, let people make their own choices and live their own paths and love them the way God loves you, because you're not perfect. Even if you don't understand why they do it, even if you don't like it, your job is to love people. Well, anyway, I don't want to alienate anybody that thinks that.
I just want to say,
we're all at different parts in our journey.
If you're confused,
that's really
young
true.
in a Christian household, Christian town, and you're confused on why they push that homosexuality is evil so much compared to all the other sins, it's because that's not the one they struggle with. This is what I figured out a long time ago. They don't struggle with it, and so they're going to push it more than the other ones because the other ones are more reasonable for them to struggle with. All of these straight, really
that
alpha
makes sense.
Men,
they can't empathize.
They don't empathize. They're like, that's the one that's really evil because I don't have a problem with it. So, all these people that are saying, like, you have a demon inside of you if you're homosexual,
God, yeah.
Which I've heard so much in the
too
South.
many times.
This is a prevalent idea, by the way. This isn't just, like, weird churches. This is every single church I've ever been to in my life. And I still go to church, by the way.
Yeah.
It's in-fucking-sane. I'm bisexual, by the way. I don't tell them that because they think I have a demon inside of me, which is really fucking scary to me as somebody that was raised in a Christian house. Like, the idea of that kind of makes me want to pee my pants. But it's not. You're fine. I just want to let you know. And when they're pushing this super, super hard, just know that it's just because they don't have a problem with it. And it just makes... I don't even remember where I was going with this. Just, if you're a young...
It makes so much sense.
Just go talk to people that are different. I'm still a confused youth. Just go talk to people who are different than you.
That really does make so much sense, because it's easier to like, see something as evil or, like, wrong if you don't have to have empathy for it. If, like, if you lie to people, it's easier to say, like, well, maybe lying isn't that bad. But if you are, like... If you don't struggle with any kind of, like, feelings for the same gender or anything like that, then it's easy to, like, disconnect from that and just go, oh, no, that's wrong.
110% wrong.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
It. Yeah, I realized that years ago, and it really helped me in my path to bisexuality. By the way, androgynous bisexuals, we're gonna rule the world. Like, it's just gonna happen, because we're the master race.
The master race.
Just kidding. But... I don't know, it's very hard growing up in a church for everybody, I think. You have a lot of guilt, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. You're just supposed to be a nice fucking person and love each other, which is the one thing the church can't seem to get right most of the time.
It's unfortunate, because that's what it's essentially rooted in. It's... goodness.
It's a bummer.
I have 1,000,001 things to say, but then we're talking about another subject.
Yeah. We can grab the cakes. I think it's so interesting. I think religion and stuff is very interesting as somebody who was raised up in it as if it were a cult. Like, it's very serious.
It is very serious, and it's
not an outlier. Like, my experience isn't an outlier in the South. It's very common for everyone.
Yeah. I've heard that, what you were talking about. Yeah. Moral of the story, no matter what your religious affiliation is, be it whatever / none, you can be affiliated with nothing. Whatever it is, try to understand that everybody's doing their best, and that doesn't excuse their behavior. You know what I mean? We need to strive to be better, but screaming at people that you disagree with will not help anybody.
Never. Never has it ever.
No.
Having conversations, it's what's going to save our country, if anything can. Just talking to people who are different than you. If you're a straight alpha man, go talk to a little gay person, but don't be, like, scary.
Don't be scary.
Be less intimidating.
Don't do it.
That's another thing. Having gentle conversations with people who disagree with you, it is the most painful thing, but it's nice when people can just hear you and, like, you can see them gain that empathy.
It's a breath of fresh air. Honestly, having a reasonable conversation. I have one extremely conservative friend, and he's one of my favorite people to talk to, because we disagree on about every single thing, but hearing somebody else's perspective is so refreshing, and in a calm way. It's very enlightening, and you get to see where these people's thought processes are coming from, because they do have a thought process. They're not just, like, 110% hateful. They have an idea of where they're coming from, and to them, it all makes sense, which is what you have to remember, is to them, they think they're doing the right thing. It's not up to you to convince them that they're doing the wrong thing. It's up to you to let them know why you think you're doing the right thing. Because this is where... Okay, let's get back to the cake. I have a good segue.
Okay, back to the cake. Back to the cake.
One of the things that one of the justices said, I think that's what they're called, Chief Justices, in the Supreme Court, because it went all the way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's probably why it took this long.
Yes, it took for fucking ever. They recognized that religion is used throughout history to justify slavery and the Holocaust and all kinds of discrimination. Like, they were like, this is obviously not going to be used as a blanket cover all discrimination cases. They're going to be held on a case-by-case basis, and not every single one is going to be cleared like this one, which I think is a amazing and needed point of clarification, because I know as soon as this verdict got announced, there's very real fear in people that they will not be able to get services that they need. And I think you just have to put yourself in those people's shoes. If you had something very obvious about you that you couldn't hide and you couldn't change, how would you feel if you were denied service about that? Like, it would be scary. I don't know. You just gotta sympathize, man. So many people are just not sympathetic. Just think about somebody else for a change.
Pretty much. And a note about the ruling in favor of the Cake Man. On this particular one, apparently they ruled in favor of the Cake Man not because Cake Man was right for doing so, but because of how the entire case was approached by the other people. So registering a legal case wasn't a bad thing, but because of the, I think it was the political and social media backlash on this Cake Man, it actually caused him a lot of problems in his business, and he wasn't able to conduct business because of how dare you not serve the gay people the Cake Man, and that's essentially why the Supreme Court was like, okay, this Cake Man shouldn't have done that, all right? And if it just stopped there, the Cake Man would be in trouble. But it went farther than that, and it affected his business and his blah, 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 because of this other stuff.
That makes me wonder if they kind of see it like well, his business is suffering enough as a punishment, we don't need to punish him kind of thing. Where it's like, yeah, your business is going down the toilet because of what you did to these people, we don't need to punish you any further.
It's a bad
kind of thing.
Move.
It is.
Yeah, that was a shitty business move.
It's just kind of a dumb business move. Like, as much as I want to be like, go to prison, Cake Man, it's just kind of like, well, you're just gonna go out of business, Cake Man. Like, you're just not gonna be able to do well in this town, especially Colorado. What are you thinking? They have legal pot there. Everybody's chill as fuck. Nobody's gonna back you.
Nobody's gonna back you, Cake Man.
Cake Man.
What are you thinking?
You're being crazy.
Unfortunately, the LGBTQ and conservative issue is more deep-seated than, like, they're just mean and they're just sinful, vice versa. That's two people talking about the other one.
Yeah, there's way too much of just blanket statements being thrown around. We need to try and be reasonable and understand each other a little bit more.
Yeah.
As much as it hurts, and as much as blanket statements are very comforting. It's not the way to go about things. Our country's gonna fucking fall apart.
This is okay. I've got something semi-related. A friend of mine was telling me how when she was growing up, 'cause she was the oldest sister, she used to try and tell her younger siblings when they were watching Disney movies, like she would try and be like, okay, you have to remember, the villain doesn't know that they're not setting out to be evil. They're doing this because they think it's what's right. Yep. And just trying to be like, there's no, like, cut and dry, like, this person is evil just to be evil, and they should just be punished. That's, like, I like, I don't know, I like shows and things where instead of, like, defeating the villain, they help them, or, like, save them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what it is. Most villains any well-written villain character starts from a very human place where you can almost relate to the villain. If you can write it in such a way that you can relate to the villain and then, like, almost be sad for their downfall to the place that they get, then you have a really good villain.
Well, that's, like,
you know what I mean?
That's real life, man. That's real life shit. Is all these people that you think are just living embodiments of the devil, they started as a kid. And they weren't born like that. Like, somebody fucked them up when they were a kid. They beat them or molested them. Like, that happens all the time. And then what do you expect them to grow up to be? A perfect society person when nobody recognized their issues and brought them to therapy or got them any medication? No, they're gonna be a little fucked up. I don't know. And that shouldn't justify anybody's behavior, but it should make you understand where they're coming from. I don't know. It's such a fucking gray area. There's a really interesting case. Sorry, I'm derailing us again. I love crime.
Go ahead.
there's a really interesting case where when people get isolated in their homes, it gets even crazier. And this is kind of goes back to religion.
Yeah.
People get nuts.
Yeah.
If you just you can get them isolated from everybody else, you can go nuts together. It's a great time.
Yeah.
So this whole family, they were homeschooled, and this woman raised like 6 kids. She was targeting her daughters. So she made her sons beat up her daughters. And in this way, they all felt like they couldn't go ask for help because they were all involved in a way. Because they were all beating each other up and starving each other, and whenever one of them was being specifically targeted, they all, went along with it because they didn't have any other choice. They were raised like this, So when the son hits 18 and he beats his sister so much that she dies, whose fault is that? Is it the mother's fault because she raised him since he was 2 to beat up his sister? Or is it the kid's fault because he's 18, he's an adult now? It's that case of, like, I don't know. It's everybody's fault. People are terrible.
At that point, yeah.
It's just, you gotta keep in mind, like, how these people were raised, it directly affects your actions.
And it doesn't always
Moral ethics are fascinating.
It's true.
It's so interesting, isn't it?
It doesn't always embody itself in such a negative way either. You have 2 people on either side of the coin. Like, for example, the far right versus the far left. You know what I mean? Both people have had experiences that when you talk to them, like, at a Starbucks, unless they're a dick, just, like, as a person, you're gonna be like, hello, sir or madam, here is your drink, and they're gonna be like, hi, thanks, I like your shirt, buddy, and then that's it. Like, that was a pleasant conversation. They're not just, like, horrible, horrible people, more often than not. And it's coming at it, when you come across one of these situations where you super, super disagree with somebody, I think that the wrong reaction every time is hatefully attacking on either side. There's a very vehement sector on YouTube, even of people just hate watching content of either side, and then just dumbing it down and leaving mean comments. It gets us nowhere really quick. I had a really long conversation with somebody, unfortunately close to me, last year, where we were just going back and forth about the validity of the trans community. Somebody was, like I said, very unfortunately close to me, where it got almost seething with hatred for a second. God. And I was just like, that's not your business, whether you think it is or isn't. You know what I mean? And the conversation, I'm going on a tangent, because we had this conversation where it got heated for a second here and there, but we were both attempting to hear each other out at the end of it, because, again, I'd been on that side of the coin before. I was able to pull them a little bit closer to my end of the pool by being like, it's not your job to judge people. It is your job to love people. And whether or not you want the responsibility, the moment you tag yourself as a Christian and you start saying hateful stuff, you are doing the opposite of what you are trying to do, which is convert people, quote unquote. Which is that's a problem in and of itself, but we're baby steps. Baby steps. And you are ruining what you're supposed to do. And they were just like, oh, damn. You're right. And I was like, yes.
That's awesome.
Don't be hateful, because you're undoing what you're trying to help people by being mad at them. That doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
And anyway, those conversations are hard, but they can help if done in the right way. And that wouldn't have happened if I couldn't have been on that end and been like, look, I know where you're coming from. I know why you think that. Let's bring it to a middle ground.
Yes.
And if you can't look at that other person's point of view, then you're never going to be able to get to a place of understanding and growth.
Yes. I totally agree.
It's like, I was reading this one tweet that it said something that essentially was just like, nobody's born woke. Like, we've all gone through, like, crazy teenager stuff where I'm just like, I look back on it and I'm like, I can't believe, I didn't know that was a slur or something. Yeah. Like, or that my language was that insensitive.
Yes.
And just little things where, I don't know, I've realized how far I've come from where I was. I don't know, it's very interesting.
No, it's very important to do that and then take that understanding of how far we've individually come as people or where we're going still and be able to apply that to other people. So whenever you see somebody, like, it's so silly, but, like, I've been, reading these books and trying to be more open-minded and blah, 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 blah within the last few years. Demi Lovato has, like, a really bad reputation of kind of being an ass. And I don't know what it was. There was some, like, gossip nonsense, blah, 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 where she said something on Twitter and people were mad. And as wrong as it was for her to say whatever it was, I don't even remember, but it was wrong. Instead of me being like, that bitch, which I would have said as a teenager, I was just like, oh, damn, she's, like, probably dealing with some shit, and that's why she's like that. You know what I mean? It's, people are growing. Give people room to grow. Don't allow yourself or others to be treated negatively. Stand up for yourself, but do it in a loving way that allows people to change. Be the anime hero that befriends the enemy, alright? That's your job.
That's another thing that really sucks just in terms of our position of, like, existing online, is that people, viewers, like, followers, lose the concept of time. Yeah. So, if you say, like, oh, my favorite color is this in a video, it is that forever. And if you ever say anything else, like, 10 years later, they're like, no, you're contradicting yourself. And it's like, there's, like, a 10-year time gap between those two videos. Just because you watch them 2 minutes apart does not mean that, like, it's the same thing. Like, I am not the same person that I was when I first started making YouTube videos. I'm, like, a completely different person.
Yeah. I think that, oh God, I can't express just how happy I am that I didn't start making content for the internet until my 20s.
I know.
Like, oh man, the shit that young Crystal said was bad. Young Crystal needed to grow, and she did. But it's just, oh man, I guess for viewers and consumers out there, particularly with influencers on the internet, people change, man, and it's okay that they change. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not for the better. It's better to accept and realize that time exists. And like, Dan is not on fire. He's now Daniel Howell, and we need to respect that.
We're cool with that. Change your brand. Be a new person. Grow. It's great. Mm-hmm. You should. I know it's very, very hard to, like, embrace change immediately, but you should consciously think to yourself that change is not bad. And I have to do this to myself all the time. Anytime anything changes, even if it's just, like, the theme song to a show, I'm like, what the fuck is this? I can't do this a new thing in my life
this
right now.
Good.
And, I mean,
no change.
You just gotta, like, let it go a little bit. Everything is not so serious as you think it is, I promise. Things are not as big of a deal. Some person talking shit and saying the wrong thing on Twitter is not the end of the world. It's not gonna kill every single LGBTQ person in the world if one person is a dumbass. Because guess what? There's millions of them. And they're always talking. You just have to calmly correct them and move on with your life. Let that shit go. It's not your problem to educate them every second. But
it's not.
It's great to just calmly correct and educate once and then back away. They need time to think about it. Just plant those seeds and leave.
Also, to lead by example. That's another thing. To, like, plant positive seeds so that just for the youngins who are growing up now, if you just, like, do little things, like just acknowledge the existence of non-binary people. Just little things, offhandedly. That will get ingrained in their brains, and they won't even know it. And they'll grow up more woke than we were.
Yep.
Which is great.
I would like to say whatever your thoughts are on life at the moment, whatever they were birthed from, with your environments growing up, or whether you were born and raised in America, or the UK, or the Middle East, or the Asia, or whatever. The Asia. Just allow... shoot, I got excited about the Asia and I forgot what I was going to say. I was like, the Asia, that's what it should be called from now on. Damn it, I lost what I was going to say. Planting seeds of positivity can also just mean not necessarily agreeing with somebody or necessarily even changing your religious or personal affiliations, even if they're non-religious. It could just be accepting people for who they are. You know what I mean? You don't have to, like, necessarily agree that non-binary is even a thing. Like, you don't have to. It's okay. But those people are still people, and they have feelings, and no matter who you are or where you're from, it's your job to show love to other people, because that's how we're going to get to a better place as a human race. So, even if you don't agree with somebody, love them, acknowledge them, accept them as they are, and lead by example. And show the world, or your circle of influence, or this person that you think is wrong, with your positivity, with your acceptance, with your love, why the way you think is important.
Hell yeah.
That's the way to do it.
I love it. Was that your positivity corner? Because I think that's
That
very
will be.
positive. I love it.
That's my positivity
It's so
I like
corner.
it.
good.
It's a positive.
I liked that.
Try to save the villains, don't defeat them.
Exactly.
I like
Exactly,
that.
guys.
I like that. We just need conversations, and it could just
Yeah.
be so easy. But everybody wants to yell, and I'm tired.
Same mood. I'm tired too.
One more thing I wanted to say is just your friendly daily reminder that bisexuals, asexuals, and trans people are super valid. And even if you don't want them in your cool LGBTQ bubble, they're there already, and they're cool, and they're living their fucking life. And
Like, knock it off with the gatekeeping.
knock it off. And another thing that I learned recently is that Native American cultures used to think that transgender people were psychic and, like, valued for their spiritual knowledge. Have you guys heard this before?
I think
No,
I've heard
that's
something
awesome.
similar.
It's
I've heard
so
something like
cool. And I think that's a good reminder for people who are, like, super conservative. And I grew up thinking this, too. It's not just our generation of people that are doing this. It's been going on since the dawn of man. And I think people forget
like
that.
this is seriously like a dawn of humankind thing.
People have been transgender forever. People have been gay forever. All right, that's my
pretty
thing.
much. I know I already had my positivity corner, but speaking of the dawn of time, I'm sorry. It's in my bones.
You're such
I
a
can't
positive
escape
person.
it. I was gonna say I don't mean it, but I do. I can't help it, I guess. Humans, right? The human story, no matter how you think it started, is that of progression. You see this evolution of behaviors where, like, it's, hey, maybe let's not rape women. It's like, what? That's a crazy idea. But that's where humans were then. We are still, as a human race, progressing, and we're still moving forward, and we are still learning. And that's an uplifting thing. Heaven doesn't have to be like this thing that only Christians think of. It can be a thing that we have on earth because we love each other, and we're behaving as our best selves.
Aww.
And I think that's what we can all strive for, whether or not we think certain things.
Aww. We got
Okay, I'm
two
done.
for the
Okay,
price
I'm
of
done.
Aww.
Okay, I'm done.
I feel like I should throw out that I'm like the not religious one of the three. Just in case, that wasn't clear before for any of the listeners.
Well, that just goes to show that you can, that's a good thing. Be friends
Yeah.
with people.
I like our bunch. I like
we are
our bunch
best
of
friends,
like.
and we all think things in our own way, and that's okay.
Yeah, like people can you can be friends with people who don't see the world the same way as you.
It's
like,
good
And
to
it's not
be.
even a thing.
I feel like we're a
Do
solid
be.
example of
Yeah.
that.
Do that more. It's important.
Legit. I'm pretty sure I can speak for Echo, but I don't think about Echo's religious affiliation ever.
I don't care at
I'm
all.
pretty sure.
Yeah,
I
feel same.
It's not a
I'm
thing.
worried about
You know what I
deciding
mean?
what I think.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Because we've had solid conversations about religion.
Yeah.
Oh,
like
and they've
just
been-
in-depth stuff.
Okay, we gotta.
Okay, should we sign off?
We should sign off. Okay.
You want to say our stuff?
Yeah, we upload mostly on Mondays. On YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, and we're working on SoundCloud.
We're working
we know
on
it's
it.
funky.
It's
It's
technical
funky. We're working
difficulties.
on it. Yeah. Our handles are
At Happy Panda Party.
At Echo is Weird.
and at the Crystal Joy.
And remember, friends, the human body cannot survive without salt. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, guys. See you next
Yeah.
time. You are valid the
See
way
ya.
you are.
Bye-bye.
You are loved the
Yes,
way you are.
you're awesome.
Great. You're awesome.